Yo, hello everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to Into the Darkness, my segment where we talk all things horror in film mostly, but maybe potentially in the future television. But joining me on this segment is my two good friends, my co-host, Mr. DJ Anubis at the Metal Tavern Radio, and of course, Anthony Jordan of Anthony Jordan's Movies and Gaming. We're generally joined by Mr. Tony of the Dead, but he's not available today. He's got some things to take care of, but he's here in spirit. And this one is a bit of a doozy that we're going to talk about, to say the least. But it's like any genre of film. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's even the bad, but that good bad. This, however, who knows? Let's see how people feel.
It's
And what?
certainly something.
Yeah. So we're here to talk about Basket Case. That's right, the Basket Case Trilogy. So, where do we start? Mr. DJ Anubis, can you remember when you first seen or heard about Basket Case?
Well, I'm sure that in the early 80s, because this was released in 82, that, this is the age of newspapers. You didn't have the internet to look at things, and you did get trailers, but, you probably didn't see them quite as often as you do now, or can go online on YouTube to watch them. But I remember the poster art for it in the newspaper, and so I was aware of it, but I probably didn't see it till probably like the late 80s, early 90s for the first time. And at that point, it was like really a bizarre thing to witness. Like, obviously we've got a young man named Dwayne and his brother Belial, who are conjoined at birth and are then separated. But Belial is really he's almost like a tumor that's growing on Dwayne.
A tumor.
Yeah. And, it doesn't look like anything like Dwayne. Dwayne looks like, so you got this poor Belial here who, he's just a guy looking for love, but it's just a strange thing, the way they design this, and that Belial gets carried around in a basket and stuff like that. So it certainly threw me for a loop, but I remember still kind of being at the time kind of terrified because Belial is pretty eerie looking. So
it's like the raw sound he makes. It's like that raw, but like you see, like as the story goes, you've got like a father and a mother who she give birth to this. What she thinks is a set of twins, but they're meant to be conjoined twins, but like you see, Bernal, he's like this creature thing. He's like, you see, he's not really a twin. He's more like, you see, a living tumor, which is the like strange thing about it. And obviously, just the whole story is bonkers. Mr. Anthony Jordan, can you remember the first time you heard or saw Basket Case?
Well, the first time I saw about it, I believe it was when AVGN, one of his Monster Madness, when he talked about it. And just thinking, this looks completely bonkers. I don't think I'll ever watch this. Well, fast forward, you announced it in last week, like Anubis did the watch along on StreamYards, and it wasn't that good, but I say at least it was weird and entertaining. I'm watching it, and my thought is like, what drugs weren't they on when they made this?
Yeah. The first time I ever seen this, I hadn't seen it on the television or anything like that. I was researching something online, and I came across the original black and white poster with the red basket case, And the slogan was in the tenant in the tenant in room 7 is very small, very twisted, and very mad. And all you could see on the poster was like the top of the basket, the hand, and the eyes, and then obviously him crawling out the basket. Was fascinating. Took me a while to find the movie to eventually watch the first one, but unknown to me, I didn't actually know this was part of a trilogy. I thought the way the first one ended, it was a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I thought for what it was crazy, it was creepy, it was bizarre, but I thought, oh, well, it had a decent ending, everyone dies, basically. But little did I know it was a trilogy. And it took us time, it took us a while to get round to the sequels. So
Yeah, like I'll talk more when we get to them, but it did have a few like interesting moments. I gotta admit, I found the scene when his brother's out with that girl and he like senses it and throws the temper tantrum in the apartment. I found that to be absolutely hilarious.
mm-hmm. The thing is, I noticed between the difference between the first, second, and third is even though, yes, the first one's crazy and bonkers, it's a lot more grounded in tone in many ways. And it is generally, like Anubis said, it has elements where it is quite creepy, where the next two, for me, are like, it's like trying to be an R-rated garbage pail kit.
And that's the crazy thing is that the budget for the first one was only like $35K. Right to the second one went to like 2,500,000. So like that to me is crazy because this first one is still the best of all of them. And it was done with less money. So it's pretty crazy that
The
that
second one looks cheaper than the first one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Basket Case is a 1982 American horror film written and directed by Frank Henenlotter in his feature directorial debut, produced by Edgar Levins. The film stars Kevin Van Hentenryck, is that right? Hentenryck, as Dwayne Bradley, a young man who seeks vengeance on the doctors and nurses who performed an unwanted surgery that separated him from his deformed conjoined twin brother, Belial, whom Dwayne hid in a large wicker basket. So straight away, the film starts off where you see Dr. Julius Liffelander. You see him in his office. He suddenly gets very frightened as, the lights start dimming in his office and in his building. He then realizes that there's somebody in the building and he gets a bit frightened, but little did he know, he suddenly gets attacked by this unknown entity. It then skips forward to New York City, where you've got Bradley, Dwayne Bradley, carrying this wicked basket, walking down the streets of New York till he finds like this down and out kind of apartment building. And when he finds this down and out apartment building, he basically walks in. Obviously, he's got a lot of cash and he pays for a room. And he says he's basically going to just stay there till he decides to leave, which I found very, very interesting. And then he gets up into the apartment building, and that's where things start to develop more, where you see the tenants of the apartment building. You see all these crazy characters, including, like, you can tell he's like a creepy man who's walking around. He gets killed later on. My favorite character in the whole apartment building is this guy. He's like the lawman.
I think Anthony kept saying he thought he saw this guy in some other films. I can't remember if it was him or not, but someone kept mentioning it.
It was the one playing the normal looking brother that I thought
Oh, okay.
All right.
I think I like the I think it's the black chick that played Casey. He's like, she had this strut that she kept doing every time she was walking around the building.
You could tell she was having fun with the movie.
Oh
yeah. So he gets into the apartment building. He's finally, all the tenants are kind of looking at him. It's like seen out of the Wild West where they're like checking him out, they're trying to suss him out. And then he goes into his apartment building, and then after that he goes across the street to like a hamburger joint, and then next thing you know, he's sitting in the apartment and he's literally feeding whatever's in this wicked basket. He's feeding it like fucking 50,000 hamburgers because Benale has quite an appetite. And one thing I noticed, I don't know if you remember, throughout the first movie, I don't think they ever call Benale by name. I don't think they ever call.
Hard to say. I mean, I know they do, like he does. Dwayne does reference that he's his brother, but I can't remember if he does or not in the first one.
I don't think he was named till the sequel.
I want to add too, when we were watching this, when it got to the surgery scene, Matt Gojira 851 was with us, and he said it sounded like they were ripping celery.
Yeah, it probably was.
Yeah, so he's looking around. He takes some hamburgers up to the basket. He starts talking. The next day, there's a man named Brian O'Donovan looks through Dwayne's keyhole in order to steal Dwayne's wad of money, but he didn't quite steal it straight away. Then he takes the basket to like an old school cinema. And when he goes to the old school cinema with the basket, he leaves it, and then Dwayne's like trying not to fall asleep. And when he does fall asleep, there's some creep in the cinema steals the basket and kind of whisks it backstage. And he opens the basket and he's suddenly attacked by Benale and is killed. The one thing I will say that I do like about this, despite the goofy plot and how it breaks down, is I do like some of the kills and the effects on the kills that are quite bloody and gory. I think the kills are what make the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So once that's happened, the very next day, he then takes him to a doctor, Dr. Harold Needleman. Now, he befriends the assistant, who is quite a voluptuous lady, should we say. That is his assistant, who, when I was watching this, I kept looking at her hair and I was thinking, that's got to be a wig. That just does not feel like real hair. Or she even actually really blonde, this actress. But
you can't remind me of another actress. I had to look it up, but it wasn't the same person. But I was like, damn, she looks so familiar.
It looks too heavy to be real hair.
Mm-hmm. Well, she is heavy, but in another way, which we'll find out later on in the bedroom scene. But anyway, Dwayne's there secretly checking out the doctor and trying to. It's like a stakeout what he's doing, and the reason he's staking him out is, like we're seeing the plot. Him and Benale have decided that they're going to go after the doctors that separated them. So the first one was killed right at the beginning of the film, and then the next thing you know, he goes out and the second doctor is brutally killed. But at the same time as that's happening, he finds an attraction with the secretary, and then he lies to Benale after the death of the first doctor, and he ends up then going like on a secret date with the secretary, and that is where things go crazy, where he goes on a rampage and destroys the room. But when he goes on that rampage, Benale, because they're psychically connected, like because they were conjoined, they have like the ability to feel each other's thoughts and emotions. So he goes on an absolute rampage and wrecks the room. But during the wreck of the room, this guy and everybody that lives in the apartment building ends up going up to the room, and they go into his room, but they don't find anything. But during that time, that's when the sleazy guy in the apartment sees the cash in one of the drawers and decides, when everyone leaves, I'm going to go back and steal the cash. And so when he goes back to the apartment, he's literally, that's where you see one of the best kills in the movie, where Benail literally jumps out and attacks him. This is the aftermath. That for me looks really great. The effects in this and the kills are just phenomenal. So what's your opinion, Anubis, of so far the plot and how it's coming together with like the mixture of flashbacks and the dueling kind of personalities of Benail and Dwayne?
It's pretty good, actually. It works. They could have easily just done all the backstory first and then worked their way into it, but I like how they kind of went back, because at first you don't know why like certain people are being killed. So even from the beginning, you don't know why this doctor is being hunted down and killed. But then as it starts unraveling, like even with like Dr. Judith Cutter, who seems like a real bitch anyway, you know, we figure out like why Belial is so angry, and then that Dwayne has actually participated in helping Belial hunt these people down. Like that's his plan. Obviously, the issue here is that Belial is basically psychotic. Like he's a creature that isn't really totally formed. So like we see when he has like his date with Sharon that he starts freaking the fuck out in the apartment. So people are like, what is that in that room? Like, so that's a common thing throughout these movies, is that Dwayne is constantly trying to find his own humanity, because he is more human, even though he has the scarring from the when they were separated. It's just that he can't really find a life with Belial being there, because Belial is more, you know, people are like scared of Belial because of what he is and because of his behavior. So obviously, as the movies go on, it's almost like a flip of the switch in some way.
The both kind of change roles, where one becomes more settled and the other one gets more deranged.
Right.
They like switch personalities, kind of, in
which
many
is kind
ways.
of nice. I mean, despite how ridiculous the other two sequels are, like at least they're consistently trying to mix it up and show you something new with the series, which I thought was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, so far in the original, like, just I like the idea that we know why through flashbacks why they're doing what they're doing.
And one thing I've noticed as well, if you look at the names of the doctors that operated on them, they've all got surgical names. So Dr. Needleman, Dr. Cutter, Lifflander, like they've all got like names that are connected to like surgical equipment or hospital, you know, and I found that hilarious, to be honest. So as the plot progresses, Dwayne's basically trying to connect with did you say Victoria was her name? Sharon, trying to connect with Sharon, but as he's fallen for her more and more, it's basically pushing Benail to get deeper into like a dark, crazy place. And, you know, they have like a mission, and that is to revenge what happened to them when they were younger. And this is when, obviously, after, you know, the attack of the guy in the apartment, Dwayne comes running back to the apartment with Sharon, and he basically tells her to keep away from him because it's dangerous and he doesn't want her to get hurt. And
this is actually a funny piece of trivia. So the director, Frank Henenlotter, he was so emboldened to make the movie because he believed that nobody would ever see it. He claims to have been horrified when it became a success. That is awesome. Like the dude like made it just because he's like, nah, this one's gonna see this shit. Come on now. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really hilarious. Why would you make a film that you want to feel? So maybe it's because he came up with the concept and thought, a horror film involving contorted twins is a good horror concept. But as the film progressed, he was probably like, this is not the kind of film that I wanted to make. Because it basically started off as a basic horror film to go into like this monster movie.
The trivia, dude, is just okay. So you remember when Dwayne goes into the hotel, he's got that wad of money.
Yeah.
According to the director, that was their entire budget. I mean, they actually mentioned that again. This movie was done so cheaply that any of the furniture and stuff that they were using, they took out of dumpsters. Like they found dumpster diving.
Well, you can tell. I think they used the same office twice. If you look, so if you look,
that office is probably the same place where they split like the doctor's office and shit. So.
Yeah, so Dr. Needleman, who was the second doctor to be killed, that was like the down and out of basement office of some building. Then the next thing you know, he goes to Dr. Cutter's veterinary surgery and looks like the same fucking room that he got killed in.
Imagine if someone had stole that wad of money during filming.
There you go, Kevin. Did you say you thought it was a wig?
Yeah,
it was. Apparently, she was bald at the time, so they put a wig on her.
Oh, well, come on! Like, look at that.
Yeah.
So, yes, why does it explain why she was bald? Did you have
no? I mean, it could be she just had short hair at the time, or maybe some illness, but she didn't look sick, so it was probably just short hair, and they put it on there. Who knows? But I have to wonder, like, is that the only actress they were able to audition that they wanted that look for? I don't know. This guy, but the director sounds funny. Like it's like he was literally grasping at anything. Like he admits he had no experience, and the title was just something that he said, well, basket case, yeah, that sounds like a good horror film. I think I'll just make that with a monster in a basket. So the guy really had no plan at all, but somehow this movie became like a cult classic for a lot of horror fans. So.
Imagine if you were like back in the day, or like somebody like Steven Spielberg who was like that. I think I'll just make a film with a shark, and it became a cult classic. You wouldn't know what to do with yourself, would you, knowing that you've done something like that?
So here's another one, right? So he's being interviewed by Fangoria, and the director says, I hate to admit this, but anytime you heard a woman walking, that was me in high heels. This I want to talk to this guy. This guy is fucking hilarious.
Okay.
The lengths
a movie made about the actual making of this movie.
Right. It gives me like a whole new perspective about this film now. This dude is I need to find this dude. I need to talk to him.
It's called The Art of Filmmaking. What can you see? The things you've got to do to get. I've actually got more respect for this film now that you see like the little things that they've got to go to make it happen. But then there's Casey. So basically, Casey, who's a member of the apartment, one of the residents, she earlier had informed Dwayne about somebody looking through the keyhole, who's now the dude who gets killed. After the breakup of the date and, him having this conversation with Benale, Casey then decides to take him out on town. He gets very drunk and he tells Casey the entire backstory of him and Benale's situation, which kind of freaks her out, creeps her out. He then goes back to the apartment. They kind of start arguing. Next thing you know, he falls asleep drunk. And because I guess he's asleep and aroused, Benale kind of gets aroused as well. And so he kind of sneaks out of the window and gets into Casey's apartment and he kind of climbs upon our like underwear drawer, and next thing you know, she starts freaking the fuck out because there's this monster in our room. But the scariest thing is when he disappears and the policeman turns up when the police turn up, and he's this guy, the policeman, when he turns up and starts questioning everybody about like the murders and what's going on, you then see Bernal in back in the room sniffing the underwear that he stole from Casey's apartment. Which, yes, this is a horror, but it is a hell of a lot of comedy.
Oh, Anthony, really? Did you see what this guy they sent me? He's like, you should do John as Belial.
Supposed to be a secret, so he don't find out about it till it's too late.
He ain't gonna watch this. That boy plays too many games to watch our shit.
Yeah. I don't think he watches the entertainment headquarters, but anybody that does, I do appreciate it. And please watch these guys, my partners in crime on this show.
Now this is pretty
Lewis
interesting.
and
So
Mr.
I
Anthony
told
Jordan.
you I like that actress who played Casey, right? Because I thought
Yeah.
she did really. Well, apparently she had a smaller role in the film, but Frank Henlotter liked her so much that he expanded it. Plus, she's been in every film that he's done since then. So she made a pretty good impact, I guess, on him at the time.
Jerry, I think her name is Jerry Butler is the name of the actress. And she does... She
Beverly Bonner. Beverly Bonner is her name.
Beverly Bonner.
Yeah, she plays Casey.
All right. There's another Casey at the bottom of the credit scene, uncredited at the bottom, called Jerry Butler. Must be two Caseys in the movie, but I never noticed.
Yeah, I'm referring to the black woman, the actress.
Yeah. That's who I'm talking about, Casey.
Yeah. That's Beverly.
Yeah. Well, in the credit, there's somebody called Casey's John and Casey's Greta.
Yeah.
Don't know what that means, but anyway, so that shit goes down, and this is where things kind of go crazy, where he kind of says to Bernal, I want a normal life, I want a date, and the kind of it's when he falls asleep that this is where Bernal decides to go over to, I believe, this is where they then have one more kill to do for one more doctor, and it's Dr. Cutter. Pretends he's going to the vets with his sick animal. And for me, this was the best kill in the whole movie, where you see Dr. Cutter's face after he gets just totally munched and mauled up in the office and dies. And then you had them two sets of twins, the twin assistants.
Are those scalpels just like cardboard wrapped in aluminum foil?
Could be. Like, yeah. I mean, as cheap as this film was made, it probably was.
Mm-hmm. So she gets brutally killed. And then after she's brutally killed, so they've killed the third person who basically disconjointed them. So this is now where Dwayne wants a normal life and he wants to go out and date Sharon, but Bernal's kind of alone. He's like feeling he's got nobody. And so one night when Dwayne's asleep after, I think him and Sharon are getting closer. Even though he's only got two arms and no body, he manages to get all the way downtown Bernal and kind of climbs through the windowsill of Sharon's apartment and tries to make sweet love to her, which doesn't go down too well. Doesn't go down too well. We'll say that much. And after Sharon is basically brutally killed, thanks to Bernal, Dwayne grabs Bernal, takes him back to the apartment. And this is where they kind of get into this huge confrontation and argument which ends up with them both like hanging outside of the apartment building high above the ground, and they finally fall to the ground and presumed dead, which is the end of the first movie. So in all, we'll go to Anthony Jordan. In all, what do you think of the first movie in total? I know it's bonkers, I know it's crazy, but there is some good things that go with the movie. Like, it is more like a horror comedy.
Listen, it's got its moments. This one I didn't dislike. It was actually fun, especially watching it the way we were.
Mhm.
So, like, I'll at least, even if it's just barely, I'll give this one the pass.
Anubis, what's your opinions of the first one?
Yeah, I've always kind of liked it a little bit. But as we said, as I've been reading more and more about this stuff, like the extremes that the director would go to make it, and that he really never intended for anyone to really see it, and it became like this huge thing. Like that's just amazing to me. Like, it's not that he really, because he definitely wanted to make something, but the fact that he just thought that this was like slop and that no one would care, and it turns into this huge thing, that really makes it more of a story than anything. So I really like that aspect of that.
Yeah. And this is where things end up getting even more friggin' crazier, because we're now heading to Basket Case 2. Benale is back, and this time he's brought along a few friends.
Tony, when you're watching this, just be glad you didn't have to do your typical thing and binge these one after the other.
See, I was quite lucky. I spread them out. So it was the other day I was watching the last one before I was doing something else. So I've had all day to kind of watch some of that stuff, which I'm glad I spread them out and didn't have to binge watch them. Did you have to binge watch them, Anthony?
I watched part 2 one day. I watched half of part 3 the other day. Then I'm like, I just can't do this. And I came back the next day and finished.
What about you, Anubis? Did you binge watch all 3?
I think I kind of did like what Anthony did. I mean, I watched the first one, then I started watching the second one, but I probably would have kept going, but it just either was getting late and I went to bed or whatever. But I came back the next day, finished the second one, and then just watched the third one right after it. And obviously, it just gets more and more crazy from that point. Like, you thought the first one's crazy, you just haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah. So obviously the first one you said was made in 1992, and so 1982. This one's made a few years later to 1990, which is just.
And I wonder, like, how much
crazy.
of that was why it ended up as nuts as it did, I'm gonna give it to oh, I can't share it because he's got too full. Remove one of your images, Kevin, that you don't need anymore.
Right. There we go.
All right. He's never gonna watch this, so I don't care.
That is fucking terrifying. That is terrifying.
I can't help but have fun with him. He's just too easy.
Jesus, that even freaks me.
And if it gets worse, I'm just gonna blame Anthony because he's the one that came up with the idea.
Fair enough.
But so this, you know how this is made in 1990? If you remember, we did the creature feature on Alligator. And remember, the Alligator 2 was made many years after the first one. So it feels as if, like, after the 80s, there was like this wave where they were making sequels to cult classics from the 80s. So you had Basket Case, and you've got Alligator, and you had Alligator 2, The Mutation. Now we've got Basket Case 2. Can you think of any other films made in the 80s where it took till the 90s to do a sequel? That might have been a cult classic.
As far as like the sequels,
yeah.
I think all the Warlocks were done the third one I think was done in the 90s, I think.
Yeah, like towards the end of the 90s.
Yeah, because I think is the second one in the 90s? Yeah, it might be. Yeah, so that one was really good because that, I like that one a lot. I still like the third one too, but
hello, Neko.
Yeah, she's what are you doing? What are you
doing? She wants some love of her daddy.
What are you getting hungry? Is that what this is?
But I'm just looking at the budget for the second one, 2.5 million to make the second movie. And I would imagine it was a box office flop. Was it even released in theaters?
It probably was. I mean, you put that kind of budget, I'm pretty sure that they probably attempted to go and
is that a joint budget though for the first and the second together? Because did they not make them back to back? Did they not?
Are you talking about the two sequels together?
Yeah. That would make sense to me for that kind of budget. I think that's the combined budget to do 2 and 3.
They could.
Well, the only thing I don't know is like how much money he made on the first one, because even though it was a success, I don't know if the success was right away or if it happened like during time. But I'd have to see like what the eventual financial success was for the first one, because maybe that's why he got so much money for the sequel. Maybe, I don't know.
But go talking of the sequel, here we go. So Basket Case 2 is a 1990s American comedy horror film written and directed by Frank Henenlotter, and the sequel to his 1982 film Basket Case. It stars Kevin Van Hendrick reprising his role as Dwayne Bradley, who moves with his deformed, formerly conjunct twin brother Benale into a home for unique individuals run by their deceased aunt's friend, eccentric philanthropist. I can't even say the word. Get your teeth in, Kevin. What's her name? Can you say that word, Anthony? I can't even say it. Eccentric philanthropist.
Philanthropist.
Philanthropist. I can't even say it.
It's one of those words I can pronounce it if I don't have to think about how to pronounce it. But if I have to think about it, I can't.
Yeah. Well, she's one of them.
I looked it up. According to Google, they were not filmed at the same time.
All right. And she is called Granny Ruth. And the thing I loved about Granny Ruth is she's played by Annie Ross. And I remember Annie Ross in Superman 3, which she had probably the scariest scene in that movie right at the end, where she's wrapped up by the machine and becomes like the robot at the end. Now, I know a lot of people don't like Superman 3, but I think it's still a pretty awesome movie. I'd rather watch Superman 3 than Superman 4, The Request for Peace.
Which one was the one they did with Richard Pryor?
3.
That's Superman 3.
Okay.
That's the one. I still think that's an enjoyable movie compared to the fourth one. And that's the one this Annie Potts who plays Granny Ruth is involved in. So basically, how the film goes is at the end of the first one, we thought they were dead. It does a flashback sequence of them falling from the building, being taken to the hospital, both presumed dead. They actually survived the fall, and both of them are laid up in the hospital. You've got some security guard, chatting up some nurse, trying to, hook up with her. And they managed to escape from the hospital. But as they escape, during that time, at the same time, you've got this Granny Ruth in I don't know if it's a daughter or another one of people she's taken into her home, have been watching the news bulletin about Dwayne and his brother falling from the building. They then miraculously turn up outside of the hospital at the exact same time that Benale and Dwayne are leaving, and they get, persuaded to go with them, and she takes them to basically her home, who's a sanctuary for basically all of these individuals who are born with disabilities or are deformed. Which, that one with the teeth, I would not want to brush my teeth if that was how I looked.
Well, it's no wonder why they don't want to leave the house.
Yeah. Like, for me, these are like a cross between the Garbage Pail Kids, the Cabbage Patch Kids, and in the movie Nightbreed.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at these individuals. What's your opinion of this, Anthony? These newly introduced characters.
Well, you can see where most of the film's budget went. Like, despite how, I got to at least applaud the creativity for the makeup jobs, if nothing else, in this film.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a interesting premise that I just wish was in a better movie, but at least watching it, I was kind of like half, what am I watching, and half, okay, where are they going to go from here?
Yeah, it's kind of like they were, as you said, it was almost like an earlier version of Nightbreed, but not quite as good. But at least the director was staying consistent with his weirdness. I forget which character it was, but it was basically just a big mouth, and it looked a lot bit like Belial in some ways, the way it was just kind of limited to its movability.
But this is the characters of Ruth, and I think her name was Susan. So that's Granny Ruth, and that's Susan. Now, what got me though is the first movie. If you read the description, it says a 1982 horror movie. Now, this actually states it's a horror comedy. And I never knew that when I first saw this. So when I first watched this one, I thought, I know these characters look kind of creepy or funny, but maybe that's the point. But when that big mouth started singing opera, that is when I was like, oh, holy shit. Where the fuck are we going with this?
And I didn't really. I knew I recognized the girl that plays the one that he's like, Susan Smoller. She did a movie in the late 70s called Sea Gypsies, and I really enjoyed that as a kid. So I knew I saw it somewhere.
Well, I don't really want to go too far into the plot, but the basic plot of this one is basically they're in hiding after escaping from the hospital in Granny Ruth's home, aka sanctuary for these individuals. And then there's this weird newspaper that's kind of snooping to get a story, and they're going to investigate. And then basically, this chick here, she is the reporter. who's looking for a story, and as she deeps further and further into finding Dwayne in Benale, they've got to go to extreme lengths to basically hide from being discovered. And at the same time, Benale discovers that there is one of these individuals in the attic of this home who's very similar to him. I'm assuming is like a conjoined twin of some kind, or was born basically like she is, called Eve, and they kind of fall in love. Bradley falls in love with Susan, and as the plot progresses, there's reporters trying to break into the home, there's murders, then they get involved with the policeman. Does anybody recognize who's the policeman?
He looks familiar.
He is the guy from Reanimator, I believe.
Which one?
The first one.
No, I mean, which character?
He's called Phil.
Oh, okay.
And the actor's Ted Sorrell, and Ted Sorrell was in I believe, actually no, it's not Reanimator, it's a film called From Beyond.
Okay, yes, now I know what you're talking about. Okay, now that makes sense.
Now, From Beyond is in another freaky movie which used to give me the creeps as a kid. And he plays the main villain in From Beyond. I even remember as a kid going up the local video store, and I remember seeing the cover of the video, the VHS, where the face was all conjoined with his face on it, and that used to terrify me as a kid. I always found it creepy. But he plays the character Phil, who gets into he gets hired by the reporter, but then he tries to lure Dwayne to this bar to try and get him to hand himself in, but then things don't go well because him and Benale, it's a trap, and Benale ends up going ape shit on him, and they get into a vicious struggle there, and he is obviously killed. And the great shot, I love that shot where he gets pushed through the fridge door in the bar, and when he's lying there and you see half his teeth and his face is all ripped. So even in the second one, despite it being more of a comic, like a comedy, a horror comedy, it did still have some great gory gore effects. And I was all for this, and I was still enjoying this, actually, if I'm honest with you, up till the last 15 minutes with the monster sex.
Oh.
Now, the fucking monster sex was like, for me, it was like, you can clearly tell as well who, like Ruth, for example, the character Ruth, not Ruth, the character Susan, who, like we said before, they're emotionally connected, Dwayne and Benale, but the things have reversed now, where in the first movie, when Dwayne was falling in love with Sharon and was getting attractive, Benale got enraged and got basically pissed off because he was being abandoned, or he just couldn't, control his urges, where in this one, it's the opposite effect. Benale has felt for Eve, and now Dwayne is losing his mind. He's the one who's kind of going off the rails.
Now, here's the thing. Did they ever, to my knowledge, Eve is not connected to Susan at all in this film, right?
Well, the thing is, I'm sure it's the same actress who's under the special effects for
right,
Eve.
But that's my point. Is like she looks so much like Susan, but like I don't think they're supposed to be related in any way. Could be,
yeah,
but I don't remember them mentioning it.
Yeah, but the thing is, it was never ever mentioned But then a
Yeah.
part of me is like, well, because Eve basically is like a conjoined twin as well.
Yeah,
It
but I was
feels
just like laughing because here it is, Belial's like banging the very chick that looks a lot like Susan, which is what Dwayne is interested in.
yeah, and then the next thing you know, he's like getting with her, but and then Susan, obviously he wants to get with Susan,
Yeah.
but of course he cannot really get with. He goes to get with Susan, but then it turns out she's been pregnant for so many years.
6 years or something. Yeah.
6 years she's been pregnant. But one thing
It just doesn't want to leave.
it doesn't want to leave. But the one thing that never made sense is like it's never revealed who the father was.
I knew that was going to happen though, because the minute that she kept putting it off, kissing him and stuff, like there's something wrong with her. Like I started thinking of the movie Dagon and how the hot chick had just like flippers for fucking feet or some shit. So I said there's something coming that we're just not seeing yet. And then sure enough,
something came all right, and it was this.
It's like her built-in alien.
That
Feed me, Seymour. Feed me.
You can tell that's clearly a hand puppet.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jesus.
And I think that's like Dwayne's breaking point, because he's like, he wanted so much to be away from Belial and have his own life. He's like, Belial's happy now. So he wants to take this girl and then realizes she's just as crazy weird as the other ones are. So it's like, he's like, I'm fucked. I can't find any normal relationship here.
Yeah, that's what I found strange, is that Benail wants to, he's happy, he's found his peace, something that he never thought he got. But because he has his inner peace, now Dwayne is losing his mind, because he could have had potentially with Sharon, and then it was taken away from him.
Yep.
And then this film ends in such a bizarre way. You have 50 minutes of monster sex, the Owens and the Orens, and then you have Susan and Dwayne. That doesn't happen. He accidentally pushes Susan out of the window, and she falls to the floor and through this table where these all of the deformed individuals are kind of celebrating,
including the guy eating goldfish out of a goldfish bowl.
Yep. So you've got you've got Granny Susan there. This is a bit earlier on in the film, but that's the more celebrating the fact that they're together and all this crap. And then the next thing you know, she hits the table. By the way, one thing I found very weird is that Granny Ruth isn't phased when she's dead on the table. Like, there was no like screaming or shouting. It was all of the deformed individuals or around her that were losing their shit, and she was just like, "Find me, Dwayne."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Find
that was
Dwayne.
it. So obviously it ends where he knows he's fucked up and he's going through this psychological break. So how the film ends is that he takes Benail away after having passionate monster sex, and he tries to sew him back onto his body, and it ends where and he succeeds of like using a needle and stabbing it into his body and sewing them back together, and it ends where he's got like this crazy maniacal smile on his face, and that's the end.
He lost his shit. He's toast.
It ends like that. So in all, Anubis, how do you feel about the second one compared to, say, the first one? Like, what's your overall thoughts on the second one?
Again, like, it's fine that the director stood next to what he was doing in the first one. It's not near as good as the first one, despite the budget. I did find this bit of trivia funny, though, that Henlotter admits to being fueled by Jolt Cola during the film of this and Frankenhooker, to the point that Jolt Cola agreed to sponsor them. So he remember how Anthony's saying like they had to be high on something. He was high on caffeine doing these films. So
And
Makes total
obviously,
sense.
and when it comes to the third one gets even crazier. But before we talk about the third one, Anthony, what's your thoughts on the second one?
I missed the person I was before watching this movie. But I'm not a drinking man, but if I was, I would have gotten blackout drunk getting through this movie.
I'm not funny. I think this is the kind of film I would watch when I'm drunk just to have a laugh.
Who the fuck was it that was the one of the kickest thing was the announcer whenever the babies were coming out. That was the most ridiculous thing. We have twins, and then he just keeps going on and on.
Oh, that was her son.
Was it the son? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because if you remember, the story goes why she's got sympathy for these people with deformities and issues is because when she was pregnant, she gave birth to a son with 11 hands and apparently died. And then it's later revealed that her son didn't die and that he's actually secretly been hiding with this doctor.
Mm.
And so that's our son, the guy with the 11 hands. I think was he called Henry? I think it was Henry. And he's got like he's got like 11 hands, and like he's a hilarious character, and it's meant to be our son.
Was Ross in this again or no?
Ross, I'm not quite
Ross?
sure.
I thought Granny.
Yes, Annie. The Granny Ross is in this one. Yeah.
Okay, that's how I make sure because I'm assuming it'd be the same last. I don't see the character. I don't remember. See, I'm not like Anthony. Maybe I should have been drunk so I remember some of it, but I only remember certain parts of it.
Yeah, but so you've got Little Hal. Little Hal was played by Jimmy O'Doherty, and Little Hal basically was her son who said had died in the second movie, which is why she had like all the sympathy for the people with deformities who are born like different, which is a noble thing, I guess, as well. But anyway, we're gonna crack on and get to the best of the bunch. It's time to build a bigger basket. Basket Case 3, The Prodigy. So this film is the most bonkers film of the trilogy. So basically, after the events of the second movie, because of the whole lot of 50 minutes of monster porn that were subjected to in the second movie, it just turns out Eve is now with child. And Dwayne has been locked up in the cellar in like this padded cell after the events of the second movie. He's now obviously Benale has now been undisjoined to Dwayne again. They're expecting the children or the child to come from Eve, but it turns out Granny can't look after her or be able to stand by and help her. So what she ends up doing is she ends up having to go see her doctor friend, who's the only person she trusts with her chosen family, these individuals. So they end up getting into the school bus and they end up driving off all the way up north or wherever they end up going, and they bump into the sheriff of the town, who's got this really warped daughter who's like a spoiled little bitch of a character. They bump into him, and everything seems okay. I actually thought the sheriff was going to be a good character, like a good guy. But by the film's end, he kind of turns into an a-hole. So of course, during the course of the movie, we meet Big Hal, sorry, who's Auntie's daughter. We meet the doctor, and then Dwayne he's trying to escape, or he's trying to get back to normal. Benail's like preparing for fatherhood, but then during the birth sequence, the doctor who's gonna be helping deliver the babies, Benail does like the flashback sequence.
Yeah.
And when he does the flashback, I don't know if you noticed they did the same flashback. It's like they needed to find a way to add more footage, but instead of having the budget to add like more footage, they did in both films a flashback sequence of the scenes of them being separated. That's something I noticed. I noticed they did that twice for both movies. But this is the sheriff and his daughter, she's just crazy. She looks good in a pair of in a thong and a black thong, and
that chick, she was freaky.
Mm-hmm. But obviously, during the time that Eve is giving birth, the doctor is performing, helping with the birth. But all of a sudden, Benail has this horrendous flashback of events that happened in the first film. And he ends up going batshit crazy, and he attacks the doctor during the birth. I don't think this is the right picture. But it's a good picture nevertheless. He attacks the doctor. And anyway, Eve ends up giving birth to 12 babies. All conjoined little tumor babies.
Oh my god. I like how the one's eating a pencil.
And they're born with all their teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, where's she getting room for all that?
Mm-hmm. Well, did you see how much water came off that school bus when our water broke? Yes. So what ends up happening, she ends up giving birth to these little shit goblin wannabes. And next thing you know, all hell breaks loose when the police start investigating, Benail and Dwayne being in the town, because they're kind of still on the run since the first movie, and the police get heavily involved. There's a scene with Eve where she's in the nursery when all of a sudden two of the policemen break into the apartment, into the doctor's home, and they attack Eve. She's shot, she's killed. The two officers then take the babies away, and this is when Benail goes apeshit. Decides to go on the hunt, and the saving grace of this movie is he's a massive attack in the police station. So Dwayne's been captured, and Dwayne's locked up in the police station because they're kind of keeping him held arrested because of the events that happened in the first movie and the second movie. Benail is going to the police station to save the kids that have been captured, his children that's been basically taken away. And there's some amazing kills in this movie. Like this one alone.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That was just absolutely batshit crazy. But basically all the police officers are basically taken down by Benail. The only one that is left basically is the sheriff. And because he's spoiled bitch of a daughter, he was trying to, get leather whips and basically seduce Dwayne in the prison cell. And I know Anubis.
She was like banging, like she's supposed to be super religious, but she's like banging these criminals in bars and shit.
Mm-hmm. and she gets caught doing it by her dad, and it's like she couldn't give a shit.
And
There's even
he's all like, he's like disappointed, like, but he lets it go on. He's like, just get out of here. Not, oh God, look at this mess.
So that is Eve in the many little shitoid babies.
Shitoids. God, serious case of hemorrhoids there.
Yes. You coming to join us, son? So yes, Logan's arrived. So what ends up happening is basically during the shootout, the sheriff does manage to shoot Benale, and he's injured, and Dwayne manages to take him back to the doctor's home, and the sheriff swears that he's going to go and basically take down the whole of the house of all these individuals. And this is where things get even more crazy and bizarre, because they know that they're probably not going to be able to defeat the sheriff on their own. They know he's probably going to go around and just go batshit crazy and attack everybody. And I believe this is where Hal, the 11-armed fucking maggot inventor dude.
Even as big as he is, it's little Hal.
Little Hal, but that's the whole piss take. He's like a giant maggot with 11 arms with a human head. And he's an inventor. Like, he invented like that machine that can make coffee. And the next thing you know, he's going to prepare for the arrival of the sheriff. And this for me is where it takes this film to a whole nother level, because you get Robo Benale. It's like a human sheriff versus Ripley from Aliens, but except the alien is running the yellow fucking machine in the cargo hold.
It would be hilarious to see NECA or someone do a figure of that.
What? What do you think of him, Benale, Logan? He's not impressed. Yes. So anyway, it comes down to a confrontation between Benale and the sheriff. And, you know, like you say, the film does take like a crazy kind of twist. You know, Benale receives his children, but as he's recovering, he gets ambushed and he trips and he falls, failing after flating about in his armor. Benale scores a hit against Sheriff Griffin, who was swarmed and killed by the babies. So basically, they do basically. It's like attacked by like these little fucking piranha things. That's what it looked like. It looked like something like, you know, like the baby Godzillas in 1998 or Swarm of Predators. It's like that's what they did. It's like they killed them off when all the babies overpower the sheriff and kill him. And then basically, you know, Benale, he Benale's so basically that's it. He kills the sheriff. The sheriff's killed, and when the babies reclaim, Granny Ruth, Dwayne, Benale, and the freaks attack a talk show host near the end of the film.
Yeah.
So basically, there's a scene in the movie after Benale and the babies have all survived that they've all, for the last 3 movies, Benale, Dwayne, and all of these deformed individuals have been in hiding. So they decide to revolt against the world and say, you know what, we're not freaks, we're people as well. We don't want to hide anymore. We want to be out in the open. And so there's a talk show where there's a hostess who's being very sarcastic about these beautiful women who fall in love with like these people these freaks, they're calling them freaks on national television, these deformed individuals. And they're basically, how it comes across, they're basically trying to say these beautiful women have like a fetish for these freakish people. And just as she's talking, next thing you know, the door bursts open and there's Granny Ruth and all of the freaks going apeshit crazy thing. And then she looks directly in the camera and she basically says, "We will no longer be hiding," and that basically the freaks are here to stay and we're here to take over the world, which ends the trilogy. Thank fuck for that. So, Anthony Jordan, you've been quiet mostly through this. What's your thoughts on the third movie?
Well, not so much by choice. I muted some because there was some yelling going on outside.
No, but like
this one, like, I just did not really like. It was just a little way too out there for my tastes.
See, I was like Granny Ruth. Yeah, when the credits rolled, I was like, "Thank fuck, I've made it. I've actually got to the finish line."
The quality of the makeup effects, like the practical effects of this, took a huge nosedive. Like, where I could at least compliment the effects in the second one, and this one, like, I can't even really do that half the time. Like, every character that carried over just looked cheaper, to the point where you can tell, like, Eve was basically someone with a little bit of makeup on her face and a latex hood over it.
The thing is, what you said before, you said that the budget for the second one was $2.5 million, right? And you said that both the third one and the second one were filmed separately at different dates. So the second one must have made a profit for them to want to do a third one.
It did.
Because, which amazes me, because if I had seen the second one, I probably wouldn't have went and seen a third one, even if it was in theaters, or even bought the DVD.
Yeah, well, I think it's like some cases where if you have a movie that's, so like the first one was a cult classic, so it gained traction, obviously. So at that point, Hannah Lauder said, "Okay, I'm going to make the second one." And because of the name, and maybe because people do like the second one, it did well. But even the director said when it came to the third film, he rushed into it without really having a solid script. And I think that's why Anthony's pointing out the drop off so hard with the third one. Because like there are parts of this third one that I thought was pretty cool. Like, again, the girl that plays the dominatrix, the daughter, like, that's an interesting angle. It just wasn't well executed. And so she could have came in and played another role, like even deeper role later, like being more malicious or whatever. But the third one's just like off the rails. It's all over the place, you know.
For me, the only thing that saved this one was the massacre in the prison, in the police station. Like, all the deaths. There was some great, like when he bit the lip into the cop, and he started pulling, and then when he pulled away, the cop, all his face was disfigured. And then the guy who was nervous to shoot him with the shotgun, and he was shaking. And when he goes to shoot him, he jumps on him and twists him around. His head's totally twisted around.
And I did like when the daughter, though the sheriff got shot, like that guy that plays the sheriff, his motions for that was really good. Like, I expected bad crying. He did a really good job of making it sound like he really cared about her.
It was the best acting in the movie. I actually gained sympathy for him, because you can understand why he wanted to kill Benail and go after Granny Ruth, because he had motive. He lost his daughter. He had a reason to.
He was the only one that wasn't really completely out there or completely irredeemable.
Right.
And in some ways, I know he kind of, like, it wasn't even him that stole the babies. It was the other two policemen who brought them to the police station. So really, he only got involved because he had no choice to get involved.
Yep.
And then he was a good guy deep down. And then obviously when his daughter's killed, he's grieving, he's full of anger, he's probably not thinking straight. He went out basically to revenge the death of his daughter. But then it was kind of funny that when she did get shot and she fell and hit the door and fell on the floor, she sat on one of the babies.
Yeah.
So Benail did lose a child through him, if you can call it a child.
I just like that she was all like, "Yeah, I got one of these babies." I forgot what she said she was going to do with it, but she was mocking him, Dwayne, while he was in the cell.
Yeah. So when she hit the door and she fell, she fell on Little John.
She fell on that particular baby.
Yes. So Little John unfortunately was killed under some weird, crazy circumstances.
Poor John.
Yes. But in all, we'll start with Anubis. In all, what's your opinion of the whole trilogy and how give we your ratings in which order you have them in?
Well, it's definitely the order is definitely 1 through 3. It doesn't change. Now, I don't see myself visiting. Like, I don't really care about the second or third one, so I mean, I wouldn't visit those unless I was forced to, like you did me here, like you did me dirty here with this. But the first one's a fun one to kind of come back to every so often, but I think it might be another 20 years. It's for me, it's like probably about a 7 out of 10. Like I'll
probably come back to the first, the second, and the third when I've got Alzheimer's. That's the only way.
Oh, so it's easier to forget.
Yeah.
Or forget that you're even watching it.
Yeah, precisely. Like it's like I said at the beginning. When it comes to horror, we've got to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. Sometimes you get good, bad. Sometimes you get really bad. I wouldn't say this is really bad, but it's the first one for me is a pure, grounded, over-the-top horror. The other two for me, like it states, if you read it when on Wikipedia, it does say the horror comedy, so that immediately know that they've changed the direction of the movies. Which if you went to like some sanctuary or somebody's house and the woman who was there was completely deranged and keeping these people locked, against the will, and they looked grotesque and were just as dangerous, they could have turned it into a proper horror movie, but they went down the comedy direction. Me, I'm very much like you. 1 to 3 is the best, and like you say, it's something that I probably could watch the first one and not watch the other two, and just in my mind say, right, it was a beginning, middle, and end, and it ended when they fell off the building. Anthony Jordan.
I'd go 1, 2, 3. I probably would revisit the first one, but it's not going to be for some years. Like, I'm good for a while as far as 2 and 3. Like, unless I get Alzheimer's, like you said, I never want to see these films again. But at least if I have Alzheimer's, I'll have the benefit of forgetting them right after watching them.
Yes. Very true. Well, the next Into the Darkness, I believe we're going to be doing a birthday special. Is it your birthday or is your birthday? So, well, that's what we're doing for you in May. And I know what we're doing for Anubis's birthday. We've got a date with Godzilla. No, that's the night before, the night after. We're doing the Versus episode for your birthday.
Yeah.
But so the next Into the Darkness, it could potentially be. I've got 2 in mind. I think one of them, I was thinking of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I was going to do that in 2 parts because there's that many movies. And I was also thinking of a more modern horror franchise, Final Destination. So let me know in the comments below, anybody who watches, what would you like to see us cover next on Into the Darkness?
Yeah, you should probably do a poll, let them choose,
Mhm.
like just throw a bunch of franchises that we haven't done and see what they want to do.
Yeah, definitely. So that's an idea. I think I'll put a poll up for the next Into the Darkness. And there's other stuff coming on the entertainment headquarters. I do have coming up on the 27th of the month. I will be doing my next Kaiju Classic review, which is Space Amoeba. The next retro classic movie show, which I haven't got a date set for, will be Legend with Tim Curry and Tom Cruise. And on the 5th of April, I'll be doing a double review special with That Fat Samurai Guy. We're going to be doing Eye for an Eye and Eye for an Eye 2, which I cannot wait to do because I've just finished the first Eye for an Eye, which I've seen before, and I've just subscribed to Higher, which is available there. It's only $3.99 to subscribe to Higher, so I'm looking forward to watching the second one. But later coming tomorrow and later today, potentially, I have my review for Electric State, which just dropped today on Netflix. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing my top 10 Gene Hackman films, and later that day with my friend Mr. DJ Anubis and the lovely DJ Neko will be doing a review of the 2024 animated film and Oscar-winning animated film Flow. So that's what's coming up on the entertainment headquarters, but what's coming up on the Metal Tavern Radio?
So obviously you mentioned tomorrow me and Neko will join you for the Flow review. I was very surprised by that film. I do like animated films. I just didn't know much about it, so I was really happy about that. So they get to hear our opinions on that. But later in the evening, Olvin and I will continue our Silver Screen Savants. We'll be doing the movie from 1988 called Action Jackson, starring Carl Weathers. Next week, I haven't really filled in any stuff yet. I'm going to start putting stuff in. Obviously, Ghouls of Midnight will be there on Wednesday. We may get one or two of those in. I'm not sure. But then, of course, as Kevin mentioned, Friday the 21st is my sort of birthday special I'm doing before my birthday comes up the following week. It's going to be a versus where I'm going to have a panel of guests. In fact, these two great gentlemen will be joining me that night for versus between 2015's anthology Tales of Halloween versus 2007's Trick or Treat. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then finally, that Saturday, I'll be joining Sentry for the Godzilla versus Gigan stream. And then later in the evening, it's actually another special for Geek, who was on the show with Anthony last night. We're going to be doing a special Silver Screen Savants for 1980's The Fog. That's his choice that we're going to do for him.
I love The Fog.
Yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun. That's kind of the immediate stuff coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I think, like, after that Saturday, after we do your verses, I am off that week. So I think that week, when I'm off, we will schedule your next pick for Cinematic Synergy, which is Highlander, which I'm very, very much looking forward to.
I want to be a part of that one.
Okay. That'd be fun. We'll get you in on that.
Yeah, definitely. Mr. Anthony Jordan, what is coming up on your channel?
Aside from I'll be appearing on some of the ones Anubis mentioned, I gotta watch and review Godzilla vs. Hedorah, and I also gotta finish the new game plus with the English dub for Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, so I can do a review of that one.
Sounds cool. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody, thank you for tuning into the entertainment headquarters and Into the Darkness. Like I say, I will put a poll up thanks to Mr. DJ Anubis' suggestion, and we'll see which one becomes the winner for the next Into the Darkness horror review. But keep loving your horror, keep on loving all things entertainment, and from me, Anubis, and Anthony Jordan, We'll catch us all at the next one.